And we'll begin with a roll call. David Beckham. Ted Cook. Here. Buchanan. Present. Patrice.
Here.
Online. Mr. Jude John, I'd like to welcome you. Here. Tim Tamir.
Here.
Pete Kim. Here. And Jonathan Lyons. Everybody's present and accounted for. And then for our non-voting members, Tom Wushatsky.
Lainey Meeker has designated for director.
Thank you. Ray DeCiccio. Gail Griffin. Lauren Kuby. Karen Peters. Robin Said. TJ Shope.
I'm here.
Thank you, TJ. Welcome. Stephanie Stahl Hamilton. And Sandra Watson. Roll call is complete. For the record, please remember to identify yourself when making a motion or requesting to speak. Please ensure you are unmuted for any votes. And for those in the room, please remember to have the microphones on the table for sound purposes. In addition, if any board member wishes to depart the meeting anytime, please announce your departure for our recorded meeting minutes. Do we have any disclosures for conflicts of interests?
Good morning, Joe Satelli, General Counsel. No disclosures have been submitted for today's meeting. I'll also note for the meeting record that Lauren Kuby did join the meeting.
Okay, thank you for joining, Lauren. And we're going to go to agenda item number 3, the director's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Board members, appreciate you joining us in the craziness that is the month of July. It's always a little challenging to get everyone together, so really happy to see full attendance here today. Welcome to what we anticipate will be a relatively quick board meeting. I know there are a lot of qualifiers on that, but not a ton on the agenda. I do want to make just a couple of notes. We are still awaiting a replacement for Sue Montgomery's seat. Remember, she resigned last month because of a move where she no longer lives in the county, a small county statutorily that she was required to live in. The Senate Minority Leader is responsible for replacing that seat and has been in contact with us to say to expect something in August. Again, July is a tough month. So we will hopefully have a good report and an update to give you at our next meeting in August. At this point, I want to pass the microphone to Ben Alternator. He's going to give us a quick budget update. I'll just let him do that. We'll just jump right into the fun.
Thanks, Director McGuire, and good morning. Ben Alternator. I serve as the Assistant Director for External Affairs here at WIFA. Happy to meet some of you for the first time. The last time we met was June 18th, and I provided you an update that had budget implications for the authority of between $60 and $72 million being swept from the long-term water augmentation fund. About a week later, following the veto of several budget bills, the House and Senate passed a budget that was endorsed and ultimately enacted by the executive. And that final enacted budget, unfortunately, only got worse with respect to the long-term water augmentation fund. It included $84.5 million in sweeps to the fund in the General Appropriations Act of Senate Bill 1735. You may have all seen my memo that outlined those sweeps, but in short, there was a number of agencies that were funded through the Long-Term Water Augmentation Fund for projects. For example, the Department of Environmental Quality received $26 million. The Department of Emergency and Military Affairs, $350,000. Department of Forestry and Fire Management received a little over $40 million. And then there was other local projects that were funded out of the augmentation fund as well, including $5 million for Gilbert Wells, $3 million for Kingman well drilling, and $1 million for Bullhead City. There was also an appropriation of the Department of Water Resources of $1.7 million for agency staffing and Colorado River litigation. The authority was appropriated $250,000 from the general fund to the Water Conservation Grant Fund. There is no budget reconciliation language guidance on the purpose of that $250,000. And additionally, there is $500,000 from the general fund that was also appropriated to the authority as a pass-through grant. And this is for on-farm irrigation projects for growers in the Gila Valley Irrigation District in the Upper Gila. So unfortunately, it continues the disturbing trend we've seen of siphoning off money from our secure water future for other projects and purposes. And while I won't speak to the efficacy or worthiness of the projects or purposes the funds are diverted for, it's all done with a backdrop of over $1.5 billion remaining in the state's rainy day fund And also following the bipartisan passage of a legislative resolution whereby the legislature outlined its commitment to restoring these funds. So whether it's virtue signaling or gaslighting or some hybrid of the two, I'm not sure, but 3 sessions in a row, it's becoming more of a defining tactic. So with those comments, I'll turn it over to the board or Director McGuire if they have any comments or questions.
Thank you, Ben. So I'll just add some comments, some high-level thoughts, and then, Mr. Chair, if you'd like to give the board the opportunity to comment or add their 2 cents, I'd be happy to hear that. I think the first thing that it's important to say in response to what we just heard from Ben and what happened at the Capitol is that this does not deter WIFA from our course. We often talk about the process, right? This is the process that we've developed for identifying a long-term water augmentation project, as opposed to this is the thing that we want to go do. And that process is something that stemmed from experience. It stemmed from our experience with the unsolicited proposal in 2022. But it's not just that experience that drove us to the process. I think all of you would agree is that the process is there because it's the right thing to do. This board's mandate was not that you select a project, or this board's mandate to us was that we will not select a project unless it has gone through that process, unless it's been presented and it's been vetted through a methodical and transparent and competitive system. It's the right way to develop a generational project, right? That's true whether we have 350 million in the bank. That's true whether we have $1 billion in the bank. WIFA was created with the luxury of being able to focus on that long-term solution. We don't have ratepayers that we're trying to keep happy right now. We don't have taps that we have to keep on. We have the luxury of being able to have a very long attention span. And this board is capable of holding that attention span. I think you guys have proven that. We have no intention of deviating from the course that you've set us on just because the winds of politics blow in one direction or another. However, we still need to ensure the success of that course, and that's going to mean secure more stable funding. So to that end, I've asked staff to do a couple of things in response to what happened at the legislature. The first thing is to continue, but also amplify our political messaging. We want to try to bestow some of the attention span that you all have on the policymakers who are negotiating and voting on these budgets. And we do that through showing our wins. We do that through highlighting our process, by inviting those policymakers into that process, by continuing to show that it's not just us being responsive to things, it's because we're doing the right thing and we're trying to do the right thing for the state. The other thing that I've directed staff to do is really prioritize the process of demand management or the process of demand building with the off-takers. When we have people who have real skin in the game in these projects and show what's at stake when these cuts continue, we have more leverage from a policy perspective. But we also have the ability to show industry that we are controlling what we can. We're identifying and we're mobilizing water purchasers, and these water purchasers at the end of the day are going to be the ones who provide that backstop financing for a project, kind of regardless of what we have in the bank. Cuts do not make our job easier, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to do it. And so we will continue to be creative. We will continue to utilize our unique authorities and lean into our unique structure to do the right thing for Arizona, which is identify long-term water augmentation projects, invest in conservation, and ensure reliability for systems across the state. Having said that, Mr. Chair, if you'd like to comment.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Director, for your report. Do we have any comments from the board? Okay. Mr. Buchanan first, and then Mr. John.
I'll just say real quick, I think, and I fall into this as well, so I can't begrudge anyone, but it's easy to wrap our heads around concrete projects and harder to wrap our heads around process. But I really appreciate the updates, the explanation. I would just make the point that the good news is, we've had a solicitation, work is being, there's a lot of work going on in coming months. We're going to start, that process is going to start yielding results. And that's important for us to put out there. And And the exciting part, the good part of this is we're going to have concrete, projects and ideas that we can wrap our arms around. And so I guess I'm just putting that out there on the record, and I hope that decision makers and legislators and just the public, that we're getting ready for that, and we're excited for that, because this process is going to yield results. It's yielding results, and that's an exciting thing. And so, for those of us that it's hard to wrap our head around process, well, we'll be able to wrap our heads around, something concrete here coming months.
Thank you, Buchanan. Drew?
Yeah, just first I wanted to, as Ben said, thank Ben for getting that information and thoroughly getting it out there. One thing that I think, as being in the House in the past, representatives, educating the legislators what we do, and the process part of it, I'm still learning, but the results part of it is going to be important for them to see what we're more proactive than reactive. And I think that's a big thing that they need to understand, and educate them what WIFA was in there, what it is and what goes in there. When I was in there, I didn't really know what WIFA was. I mean, at first I thought, well, that sounded like a really nice whistle, and I have to learn to play it. But I think educating, and I think Ben can do that because he has good relationship with the legislature, is to go in and educate them on what WIFA is. That was the biggest problem in the legislature. You had all these organizations, and they never differentiated themselves from each other. So you just thought, oh, this is a water. Oh, then you throw it in with ADWR or whatever, and so I think it's important that education takes place for the legislators. Thank you.
John, do we have any other comments from the board? All right. We're going to go to agenda item number 4. We will now begin consideration of our regular agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak on a regular agenda item may request to speak prior to opening the discussion on that item. And then if you would like to submit a speaker's card, please refer to the note on the proceedings at the end of today's agenda. We're going to go to agenda item number 4, the long-term water augmentation solicitation for procurement, possible amendment, and we'll turn it over to Joe.
Thank you, Chairman Lyons. When the WIFA board approved the solicitation for procurement, the board also passed a resolution authorizing WIFA's director to approve and issue amendments to the solicitation as necessary. WIFA staff, however, committed to bringing significant substantive amendments for review, first by the committee and second by the board. After the last round of one-on-ones and question and answers from qualified teams, staff determined that board input is necessary on several potentially substantive amendments. In a meeting earlier today, staff presented this issue to the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee, and this board was also presented with a red line draft for review prior to this board meeting. I'm going to turn it over briefly to Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee Chairman Ted Cook to give us a brief report on the committee's activities.
Thank you, Mr. Tully, Mr. Chairman. During our executive session, the committee reviewed the potential draft amendments that was presented by the staff that Mr. Sattelli just outlined. And the committee discussed the proposed changes and provided certain feedback to the staff and the consultants about I'll call them slight tweaks to the proposed language, and the response from the staff and the consultants was this is sufficient guidance for them to do what they needed to do. So this will be, if the board considers it and adopts it, will be Amendment 9 under this solicitation, and we will be happy to provide a motion when the time comes for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Chairman Cook. Chairman Lyons, staff is now prepared if the board desires to conduct further briefing on this issue for the full board. Because that conversation would concern a potential amendment to the solicitation, it is subject to the limited confidentiality protections, which also governed the solicitation's development process. Therefore, if the board desires further discussion on this matter, and as part of the confidential solicitation drafting process, I would recommend entering executive session under ARS 38-431.03A2 to discuss confidential information, and under ARS 38-431.03A3 to receive legal advice concerning the same. However, I will note if the board determines that additional discussion is unnecessary given the materials that were provided prior to this meeting, the board is free to move directly to a recommendation to staff. And if inclined to approve, staff would request a motion similar to that the committee passed earlier today, which would be authorizing an amendment in substantially the same form to allow for some of those technical corrections that Chairman Cook identified. And happy to answer any questions.
Is there any desire for the board to go into executive session, or is the material provided sufficient? All right. We will not be going to agenda, executive, discussion, and we will entertain a motion regarding agenda item number 4.
Sure. Recommend that the WIFA Board of Directors approve amendment number 9 in substantially similar form to that reviewed by the committee this morning and also as provided in the materials to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Do we have a second?
Second.
Buchanan, we have a first and a second. Is there any additional board member discussion? No further discussion. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion passes. We're gonna go to,
Sorry, while we are moving to the next agenda item, Mr. Chair, I do want to note, just for the record, non-voting member Gail Griffin has joined us, as well as Vicente Reyna. He is here on behalf of Stephanie Stahl Hamilton, another one of our non-voting members.
thank you and welcome. Agenda item number 5, we're gonna turn the time over to Director McGuire to, regarding the review of statutory positions and appoint or adopt board officer and committee members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So as you know, the composition of WIFA's committees is dictated by statute. At the last meeting, this board did appoint the committees that are not subcommittees or that are not subsets of the WIFA board. So that is the Conservation Committee and the Federal Programs Committee. However, because we did not have a full complement of board members and because we were still waiting to see if we could potentially fill the vacancy that we currently have for one of our small county members, the board did defer to elect both its executive officers and its 2 subcommittees, the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee and the Water Supply Development Revolving Fund Committee, until this meeting. So we are here. You all definitely have the opportunity to do that election today. There's still the opportunity to defer that election if you'd prefer to do that, but I will leave that up to the pleasure of the board. So at this point, Mr. Chair, I think that would be the appropriate thing to do, is gauge the board's desire whether to defer or whether to go ahead and go forward with elections today. And if the desire is to go forward with elections, we can move into that aspect of the script.
How would you like to proceed? Get her done. Okay.
All right, well, that sounds good. So I think that'll.
Get her- I moved to get her done.
All right, so if you'll go to, I believe it'll be the next slide then. So the 3 executive officers of the board are the chairperson, the vice chairperson, and the treasurer. As of right now, those respective offices are held by Mr. Lyons, Mr. Kim, and Mr. Tomier. Any board member or a voting board member is eligible to take that seat. On the slide before, you did see that there are some board members who have expiration dates, or maybe it was the slide even before that, who have expiration dates that are coming up in January of next year. I do not think that needs to be relevant to the conversation that we are having. If we do need to reappoint officers in January because somebody rotates off, we are more than able to do that. So just noting that for the record in case that is a question that anybody has. Having said that, I think, Mr. Chair, I can open it up to you to accept either individual motions for those offices or to adopt those as a slate, or nominations, excuse me.
Do we have nominations
You can go back to
for
the
the
ballot.
position of chair?
I hereby nominate Jonathan Lyons as chair.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Was that for or against, Patrice?
That was 4.
Okay, wonderful.
She had to think about it for a while.
I wasn't very quick on getting to my mouth, sorry.
Just making sure. Any opposed? Any abstentions? If not, motion carries. Thank you very much. It's an honor to continue to serve. Thank you. For the position of vice chair, do we have any motions from the floor?
I nominate Pete Kim.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? If not, let's see, we'll take a vote. All in favor? We did that already, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Okay, motion carries. Then for treasurer. We have a motion from the floor.
Ms. Kim, I nominate, Tim Sumner.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. We have reappointed our executive board. Let's go to the long-term water augmentation.
Yep.
Go ahead.
All right, so members, the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee by statute is made up of 7 board members. The first board member is the statewide member. There are 4 board members who represent large counties that is greater than 400,000 people. Those members are, by statute, members of the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee. Then this board is required to vote on 2 additional members to be appointed to serve on that committee from our small counties. So on the slide in front of you, you see the current makeup of that committee. Our statewide member, Mr. Kim, and then our large county members there as automatic members of the committee. It is now up to this board to nominate and vote on 2 additional members to serve on that committee from our small counties. So your options are between Patrice Horseman, Drew John, the currently vacant seat, and Chairman Lyons. There is no requirement that it be any particular person. You will also see that right now we technically do not have any small members on that committee because the 2 members that were that rotated off of the board or that resigned from the board were our Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee members. So we don't have an incumbent at this point. So with that, we just need 2 names, 2 of our small county representatives who would be willing to serve, and then again, a motion and voting from the board.
First of all, do we have a desire from any of our small county representatives to serve? Patrice or Mr. John?
I'd be willing to serve.
Patrice?
And I would be very willing to serve as well.
Okay. I would entertain a motion.
I hereby nominate Patrice Horseman and Drew John.
Do we have a second?
Ms. Kim, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Water Supply Development Committee members, agenda item 5.3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the inverse of the committee that you just saw. This is the committee that makes recommendations based or for the board for the Water Supply Development Revolving Fund. The statutory members, once again, are our statewide member, and all of our small county representatives are automatically members of this committee. At this point, we would need a nomination for 2 additional members that are large county representatives to serve on that committee. You see the asterisk on this slide denotes our current members, which are Mr. Davis and Mr. Cook, and Mr. Davis does currently serve as the chairman.
So Mr. Davis, do you have a desire to continue to serve?
I'd like to continue.
All right. David, Ted, Tim, what are your desires?
I would very much like to continue as long as I'm serving on the board.
Okay.
If unless somebody else really wants to.
I would rather defer to those 2.
Okay.
And I'll defer to Ted if he's willing to continue serving. It's great work.
Okay. I would entertain a motion unless there's any other discussion with the board.
Mr. Chairman, I could
Yes,
move
Tim.
to appoint Buchanan Davis and Ted Cook to the Water Supply Development Committee.
Do I have a second?
Mr. Chair, Pete Kim, second.
Thank you, Pete. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to go to agenda item number 6, 5-year strategic framework.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate an efficient board. That was great. So members, included in your materials today was a proposed revision to WIFA's 5-year strategic framework. Something that my predecessor said often and that I also adopt as my philosophy is that here at WIFA, you as our board, you set the course and staff is the one that steers the ship toward that course that you've set. Many of you will remember that we developed this framework back in fiscal year 2024 to help serve as a guide for that course. It shows staff where we're supposed to go. It's a measuring tool for WIFA's success, and it's a tool that we can use to communicate with the public about what WIFA is here to do and how we plan to do it. Since 2024, we've come to you every year with proposed revisions to the plan to reflect progress that we've made, the challenges that we face, old and new challenges that have come up. And so the document that was included in your materials today is a draft that is different from the last approved plan, which we approved in August of last year. And it's meant to reflect sort of how we're going to accomplish our mandates in light of current realities, the things that have changed between then and now. One thing I will say from the get-go is that the goal today is not to approve anything. This item is noticed for discussion and review only. I'll be highlighting where I'm proposing some changes or some modifications. I'll ask for your feedback as a board based on what I hear today and what I hear in continued individual meetings with you across the next month. I'll bring a revised draft to you in August, and that's when we'll actually approve that draft as a board. So first, just quick refresher and update, and for those who were not members of the board when this came around, I'll be a little more detailed to give you an idea of what this is. WIFA has really segmented our mission into three main areas: augmentation, conservation, and reliability. The goals that we have within those areas in the augmentation side is finding a project that or projects that brings between 100 and 500,000 acre feet of water every year into the state. On the conservation side, the goal is our funding and our programs help conserve 7.5 million acre feet of water across their lifetimes. And on the reliability side, we want to serve 100 priority communities across Arizona with the water infrastructure needs that they have. So if we start with augmentation, and you can go to the next slide, that goal, I won't spend a ton of time on the slide because I think we did talk a little bit about it in the budget discussions as well. But you can see sort of our timeline, right? And the red, yellow, green. Here are the things that we've accomplished toward that goal. Here are the things that we're working on. Here are the things we know we need to do, and yet we have not started or have yet to start. We're in the middle of our parallel competitive development process on the supply side through the solicitation and through the Long-Term Water Augmentation Fund, and also on the demand side through our advisory group. And I will note that the advisory group that you all directed us to form through a resolution a few months ago is well underway. We've had some really good conversations with water providers and expect that that first official group will meet at the end of August. So definitely making progress there. If you'll go to the next slide, I have the strategic plan as well broke up sort of how we're going to accomplish our objectives into tactics and strategies. So I have the tactics in the dark boxes, the strategies in the gray boxes. And honestly, on this side, they haven't changed a whole lot since the last time we looked at this 5-year plan. We're in the middle of the process. We've worked really hard to get there. Over the next few months, we're looking forward into moving to phase 2, having real tangible projects on the ground that we're analyzing, and really ramping up public participation in that space. The place where I think there's going to be the most adjustment in the draft that you've received is really that final strategy there, how we utilize our authorities and our tools to become as independent as possible of unsure funding and make sure that our funding is more secure and is more sure. We've already chatted about that today, but it's clear there needs to be more emphasis on what WIFA can do independently with the tools that we've been given. That doesn't mean ignoring our relationship with the legislature. It doesn't mean ignoring appropriations and the need for that, but shifting our attention a little bit to be as creative as we can be and as strategic as we can be in using and protecting the resources that we already have. If you go to the next slide, Ben, on the conservation side, again, our goal is to conserve at least 7.5 million acre feet of water through our conservation programs. We've made some really good, really fast progress toward that goal. Part of that was driven because of the really tight timelines we had to get our conservation funds allocated, and now we're getting it out the door. An additional infusion of funds in 2024 really helped propel that goal forward as well. So we now anticipate a revised estimate of 6.5 million acre feet of water already just through the resources that we've put on the ground. But if you go to the next slide, that still leaves us with another million acre feet of water savings that we still need to fund. So definitely retaining that strategy of finding additional money, getting us to that 7.5 million acre foot threshold by fiscal year 2028. Similar to the Long-Term Water Augmentation Fund, I think we have some opportunities to be pretty creative in where we find those resources. Now that I think our attention can shift from just getting the applications out and getting them approved and doing that whole process, that frees up a little bit of staff bandwidth to say, okay, now how do we keep this going and how do we get that momentum going? And I really think that that needs to be a key tactic that we look at in the upcoming months. The other strategy that I think we start to pivot to, and it actually supports the first strategy, is messaging the success of the program, messaging the success of the money that we already have on the ground. You can go back to the prior slide. I'm sorry, timings might have been weird on it. There's not going to be kind of a foolproof or an airtight way for us to verify every acre foot of water that's saved through these projects. But there's going to be some good ways for us to verify that and for us to ground truth what the money that we've got on the ground is doing. So we're going to find those tools and develop those tools to accurately report on the successes and the outcomes of our projects. And similarly, I'm really excited to give you all as the board and also, policymakers and the public the opportunity to see these projects in real life. And so I think you'll see from us a very concerted effort to give you the chance to go tour completed projects, go see what these projects look like. Let's make it real, let's make it tangible, and let's show what our resources can do. And then that helps us secure additional resources into the future. And it celebrates the work of the grantees, which is something that's definitely worth being celebrated and really shows how serious they are about this big thing and this big task that they've been given too of stewarding water really wisely. All right, go to the next slide. The last of our 3 pillars on the reliability, the goal is to solve those reliability and quality issues for 100 priority communities across the state. And our strategy is really well underway. You can see from this that between our state revolving fund programs, our federal programs, and our water supply development revolving fund, we've either closed or approved, so are about to close, 67 projects in priority communities. And we have an additional 34 projects pending. That's really exciting. It shows that we can shift our strategies a little bit, I think, to focus less on marketing, which has really been what we've done over the last 18 months. We're not going to abandon that. We still want to make sure that everybody who needs to know that we exist knows that we exist and how to interact with us. But I think we really have the opportunity to look more at how we maintain our financial health to ensure we as WIFA have the cash to meet these needs as they come in the door. So if you'll go to the next slide, the tactics on this really focus on that financial health, and appreciate Denise and her team helping me develop, what this needs to look like. To ensure that we're financially sound, we're still monitoring the bond market, and we want to make sure that when the time is right, WIFA can initiate a strategically timed debt issuance. In about 2 years, our debt's paid off, and we have a ton of flexibility to be able to go out and figure out how do we bring more cash in the door in order to be more creative and help our systems more effectively. But to do that, we really have to make sure we're maintaining our AAA credit rating, because that allows us to jump into that market in the ways that are the most beneficial. Because of that, it means that we're not just going to need to focus on priority communities. We've got to make sure that we've got some of those high credit borrowers, keep our portfolio really diverse, but we've done that very well. And we have stewarded our financial resources extremely effectively. I'll just remind you, last year we had a bond refinancing, saved us $4.6 million. So that's, fantastic example of how financially sound we are and why our AAA credit rating is really important. I also want to note that our disbursement timing, which is something we've struggled with a lot, once we get these loans closed, actually getting those folks to spend money, that has drastically improved as well. And a lot of that is because this board did approve a readiness to proceed criteria. So before we even close those loans, we make sure that our borrowers are ready to go. Still have a ways to go on that for sure, but we're encouraged by the progress. And then I also want to note that because the water supply fund is part of this reliability criteria, we are continuing to work with the committee to develop a sustainable approach to that portfolio. At this committee's direction, I think that's going to continue to mean that 40% grant, 60% loan balance. At the end of this month, we'll be coming to the committee with some additional thoughts on that and how we can adjust that approach. So that was a lot. I know it's a high-level overview. That's normally the kind of thing I would go over with each of you on a one-on-one basis. But since we have time between this meeting and the next to really digest this and look at it, that's what I'm hoping we'll do. Come back to me, come back to staff with suggestions and with edits. Let's make sure that this document accurately gives staff direction, but also accurately messages to the public what WIFA is committed to do, and ensures that we know exactly how we're going to do it.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions, comments from the board?
I have one,
Yes, David.
and that is, we conducted the needs assessment,
We did.
and that was through countless meetings of potential users, end users or off takers. As chair, I was in most of those things, and I think that was before, I think reality was starting to hit on the Colorado River more. And a lot of the reason for the goal, 100 to 500, was based on the sum of the off-taker commitment, soft commitment. And so I'm wondering, as that you're meeting with off-takers more and more now, because of where we are with our long-term water augmentation fund solicitation, whether that goal should be reassessed. Because if off-takers are now saying, whoa, wait a minute, that Colorado's not gonna be there, I would like more if we should reassess that goal as part of our strategic plan.
I think that's an excellent point, and I think that our off-taker advisory group gives us a very focused opportunity to be able to do that and to ground truth that goal with them and say, is this actually the right number? Is this actually the right volume? So we can do that in parallel as well in phase 2, when we have projects that are starting to say, this is how much water we think we can bring in.
Yeah.
Assure that those two things are congruent. So I think it's a point well taken. I also was encouraged to see the Kyle Center recently released a augmented water demand study a couple months ago now, and it was very much on point with our numbers as well. So I think that, I mean, it is more recent. It still could be based on some of the same public information that we were looking at that assessed that need, and I think that'll fluctuate after August of 2026, or after August of 25, and definitely after January 26. But we will definitely keep that in mind as we interact with our
Okay,
off-takers.
thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other comments? Pete?
So I'm very glad that we're doing this, and I'm glad that we do this annually. I do think that this document that we kind of create and edit and update every year is probably one of the most important things we as a board do, right? In terms of steering the ship and trying to make sure that we understand where we're trying to go. So I do think that I agree very much with what my colleagues have said around like the updated needs assessment, right? We really, before we understand like how we're going to change these things, we have to understand how we're doing and what's needed that's out there, right? So updating like what is the off-taker's appetite for this? Has it changed? Maybe even like, hey, what's the state of the infrastructure that we're supposed to finance? And like, you know, something just very simple that anybody can digest. Is our infrastructure a C, a D, an F, a B, an A? Right? And then like we can kind of from there decide like how much effort and what's needed and those types of things. But just, and it's a mammoth undertaking to try and assess all those types of things. Nonetheless, we should try to understand like what exactly is the size of the problem that we're trying to tackle and how much effort is it going to take. And so, and then, you know, you cannot improve what you cannot measure. So let's start there. I also do think that from a process perspective, it's very difficult for board members or the public or anybody else to kind of come in and engage with the topic for, you know, at several hours at a time and make meaningful types of things. I understand that there's sensitivities with open meeting laws and things like that, but I do believe that there are mechanisms available for us to kind of get together for an extended period of time, right? Maybe offsite or shop, you know, workshop, something like this. So because what I'm concerned about is not only just the choppiness of the interactions, which, you know, is difficult to kind of get some cogent and continuous thinking going, but also if we do it one-on-one, then we don't get to interact with each other. And so I do wonder if it might be appropriate for us to kind of like find some sort of forum that's more continuous than the board meetings. And again, we want to make sure that it's transparent and all those types of things, but I would love to be able to just bounce ideas back and forth off this board to see where we want to go collectively. And I think that it might be worth the time, and everybody's busy, but it might be worth the time just to make sure that everybody not only comes up with a better document and a better set of goals, but also that everybody's really bought in and has had the opportunity to weigh in.
Pete, would you like to place that on the agenda for the next meeting?
Okay.
Perfect.
At that right time. So with that, I'll take your gentle hint to shut up. Thank you.
No. Not at all. I just want to agendize it. I want to recognize the need and concern and act on it anyway. All right.
I'm teasing, sir.
Thank you for teasing. Do we have any other comments from the board? If not, we'll go to the call to the public. Ben, do we have any,
No request to speak, Mr.
no
Chairman.
request to speak? Okay. And then now, would the board like to identify any other topics to be placed on the agenda for a future meeting?
I just had a thought.
Shall we call it a retreat?
Maybe we can ask staff to think about like what it might look like for an offsite or some sort of workshop in order to, collectively update the, 5-year strategic plan.
You can come down to the territorial prison. We can get one of the old cells and sit there till we hash it out.
Let's work on that idea, sir.
Okay. All right. Just throwing it out there. Any other topics for the board?
I will just note, Mr. Chair, that at the last meeting, Director Kim did ask for a briefing, some additional update on water system cybersecurity. We will be agendizing an update in the August meeting, so you can all look forward to that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 9, next meeting.
All right, August 20th, 2025 is our next meeting. Nothing other than a couple of agenda items that we've planned to place there of real note. We will be seeing at that meeting the next round of water supply development revolving fund projects, and I believe another round of SRF projects as well. So it'll be a pretty packed substantive agenda, a lot of materials for you all to review, but we look forward to it.
All right. Thank you. It is now 11:11 and our meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.